everyone, and welcome to UBS Trending. I'm Anthony Pastore. After a challenging first half of 2022 for investors, the third quarter has been characterized by volatility. Energy has certainly been top of mind for everyone from Wall Street to Main Street, with an energy crisis looming over Europe in particular. But despite significant volatility in commodity prices driven by recession fears, the Chief Investment Office here at UBS believes that supply concerns are likely to keep prices elevated, and they see around a 15% upside in broad commodities over the next 6 months. So let's take a dive more deeply into this with Amantia Muhidini from the Chief Investment Office. Amantia, always good to have you here.
Great to join you again, Anthony.
Yeah, it's a conversation on sustainable investing. It's a really interesting time. We've got this crazy backdrop, and we're talking about this energy crisis, and as you have so eloquently written about, Europe can certainly see some significant issues next year, particularly with the crisis in Ukraine and energy shortages. Supply is a real issue. So with that backdrop in mind, I wanted to talk to you about this energy crisis from a sustainability perspective. So what are the implications here?
Sure. So the CIO team is broadly looking at energy markets, broad commodities, all of the backdrop that you noted. Now, from a sustainability perspective, there's also this carbon emissions, decarbonization question, which we discussed. And the question specifically that clients always ask us is, well, what does it mean that we're in this environment of higher energy prices for longer, higher oil prices potentially for longer? What does it mean for sustainability? Now, there's a potential upside to thinking about higher energy prices for longer as they've been increases, and that is that clean energy sources may become relatively more competitive. We've seen some evidence that even in the current really tight market, really difficult environment, there's been an increase in investment. And in Europe, for example, just this year, the amount of renewable energy that was generated in Europe from solar in particular was 28% higher at the end of the summer than compared to the year prior. So that's a jump. That's a significant increase compared to last year. Now, this made up about 12% of Europe's total energy mix for the summer. So it's kind of a positive indicator. We're going directionally correctly. We're seeing this continued investment. We saw the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act investment that had significant incentives for renewables and for green energy, green technology. We're seeing significant and similar incentives in other markets as well, like Germany, just completely different example. Over the summer, they rolled out a €9 pass trail, like $11 or something like that. So people can take the trains to travel across the country. Now, 38 million people bought this over the summer, and according to a study by the University of Potsdam, this had a meaningful impact on the reduction of carbon emissions. So government policy is working. We're seeing continuous sort of inching towards these decarbonization goals, even against this difficult backdrop that you noted.
Yeah, so they're incentivizing people to stop driving their cars.
Yeah.
Take public transportation.
Yeah.
I think certainly living in New York City like we do, we sort of take for granted the fact that not everyone, especially in the U.S., it's not easy to get access to public transportation. So people do rely on automobiles or whatever other mode of transportation they may be taking to get from place to place. But smart idea in Germany to give, I mean, Europe is filled with really easy ways to travel, especially by train. So let's stay with Germany for a second, because something, and this is I guess I'm going to ask you the question, and then I'm going to go back to the point, because is the question about it, is there optimism on the horizon? Because Germany is talking about regasification, another unit that they're putting in place. We know that there are potential issues for them going into next year, but they are doing this incentivization program to get people to take the train. Is there optimism in that story, or is it still maybe a little bit of pessimism on the horizon, is the question?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's difficult times. Like, I don't want to kind of sugarcoat this. Yeah. Your point actually about how in the U.S., it's not that easy to just switch to trains because the infrastructure isn't there. That's not how this economy is broadly set up. What that makes a broader point, which is even though we have decarbonization goals, actually the switch is difficult. So Germany, yes, is investing in creating another terminal to allow for liquefied natural gas, which is a fossil fuel, but a lower carbon intensive fossil fuel that can help meet their energy demand. That's positive. On the other hand, this year, Germany's electricity, 70% 18% of it, 17, came out from coal-fired energy, which is kind of a highly carbon-intensive source of energy. So and it really just points out to how difficult this environment is, and how in the short term what we are going to see is an increase in likely CO2 emissions. So even with the good news that I started with, it's tricky, and all of the conversations that have happened over last week here in New York over the United Nations General Assembly also pointed to some of these challenges. Now, challenges, yes, this is what we're talking about. Let's not sugarcoat them. But let's also not forget what I said earlier. Energy capacity is still being built out. Like, there's still reasons for optimism if we're cautious.
And there seems to be a coal revival going on here, which there's some debate over whether or not you can consider coal clean energy.
Oh, I think the answer there is no.
And maybe the pundits and the politicians kind of claiming that here.
Yes, I think the debate is interesting around natural gas as a transition fossil fuel. And I think broadly, as we take a step back, we think there's energy affordability and energy reliability, which are two objectives that we have. And this is what our energy analysts here in CIO are writing about consistently. Then there's decarbonization, lowering carbon emissions, which will be important for the longer term, for us to insulate our world and portfolios, by the way,
that's right,
from these risks, right? So what the world is grappling with now is the balance between all of these objectives. Coal is difficult. It's more of a headwind. It's a step backward in this path. But as we look at the bigger picture, we think over the longer term, we're still well positioned. Just now, it's a tough terrain. Right,
and there are tailwinds out there, of course. So we just have to kind of look for the bright spots within.
Absolutely.
And clearly we know that natural resources are a commodity that sometimes they're tough to get. You have to mine for certain things, and then you need a lot of natural resources to build the infrastructure and that you need to then create green and clean energy. So it's a whole ecosystem of how energy works together. It's not just either fossil fuels or green energy. It all works together. So it's a really fascinating time, certainly, to be talking about SI with you, which we do frequently enough. But you just kind of mentioned it for a second.
Sure.
What are the investor takeaways here? It's one thing to think about it as a citizen of the world, but as an investor, what should they know here?
Sure. I mean, that's what we're focused on. I'll say one thing that we're watching for is the November upcoming Climate of Parties 27, the 27th time that the world gathers in Egypt, this time in November, to talk about what do we do around climate change and climate policy. At this point, we don't think that there will be significant policies coming out of it, but we will be watching to see what the outcomes are. So that's one thing. Secondly, as implications, to your point, these things are complex, and we think from an investor perspective, it makes sense to take a all of the above type of approach. So consider investing in those companies that are better at managing their own climate risk and their own carbon risk, because as policies come through, they will need to be prepared. That's one way. A second way to think about it is invest in those solutions through our green tech list, through the clean air and carbon reduction, to get the theme, to get that exposure on the companies that are benefiting from those tailwinds. And then the third piece here is thinking about investing in the energy transition. Those oil majors are energy companies. As they are starting to shift and transition towards renewables themselves or carbon capture solutions and so forth, those can also be a way to get exposure in investor portfolios and be part of the broader solution set as we're transitioning our economies.
Right. It's a really fascinating time. People are learning so much more about this. It's also tough when things become politicized. We have to look at the facts. And clearly at the UN last week, as you just alluded to, the conversation around climate change was pervasive is probably the word I would use. I mean, it was in every conversation. President Biden was very, very keen on talking about it too. So it's here to stay. We need to really start to educate ourselves. So I'm always glad when you get to sit down and share with us the things that we should know to help us, especially on the investing side as well, because there are a lot of opportunities out there.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, exactly. Amantia, always a pleasure. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Great. And thank you all for joining us as well. A lot of information we threw at you in the last few minutes, but there's a lot more where you can read about, and and also other videos that Amantia and the rest of the team have created with us. You can visit ubs.com/views for more content. Plus, there's a lot of content as well on our social media platforms. You can follow UBS on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Plus, as I mentioned, we have a lot of UBS Trending episodes that focus on this topic of SI and more. You can find those all on demand on the YouTube channel for UBS, as well as our website, ubs.com/studios. And if you have any questions about investing in your portfolio, make sure to speak with a financial advisor. Until next time, I'm Anthony Pastore. Have a great day, everybody, and remember to keep your eyes on what's trending. See you soon.